Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sledgehammers The Office podcast, where we celebrate the heavy hitters on the job site and in the office. Today, I'm joined, as usual, by Alex von Reich, and usually, or I shouldn't even say usually because it's been a while. We used to have a compatriot with us, Mason Oxendale, but apparently he's sick this month, so this is the third month where he's got something going on, even though we scheduled this on the same night. And the really unfortunate thing is, I harp on the guys about putting stuff in the notes section about what they did this last month, and I swear to God, he put more than he has ever put in his entire life. And
yeah.
All of his notes look hilarious. So
yes, we're missing out.
Big time. But we are going to bring him in later. He's not feeling well, so he said he'll come on for the business side of things, and we'll go from there. So, Alex, what have you been up to?
I went to Idaho for the first time for a wedding, and I'll be honest, I didn't know that Idaho had mountains, like at all. It's about as farm country as you expect. You drive outside of the airport, it's pretty much immediately farmland. I will not be moving to Idaho anytime soon. It's a beautiful state. It was great. The nice thing was actually getting to experience fall. It was like perfect. All the leaves were changing. It was super pretty. But yeah, no, it's the middle of nowhere. There's just like nothing. So not my cup of tea. And then right after that, my wife went home. I went to San Diego for a work conference, and I was at a work conference. I was exhausted because we're driving, doing all this stuff. My wife was in the wedding, so we had to deal with all that jazz. And then going straight to San Diego, and then immediately work, and lots of networking, all that kind of stuff. It was super good. Made some amazing connections. Heard from some other consultants who have already been there, done that for a lot of things. Got some great insights there, and kind of actioning a lot of that stuff now. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What about you?
Nice. When I sat down to fill in what I did this last month, I had to look at my calendar. I was like, I don't think I did anything exciting this month because most of it was work. But the one fun thing we did, our church has an annual Halloween volleyball tournament.
Oh, that's cool.
So each community group with the church, they'll dress up, and depending on how well your community does, if you're in the top 3 of the costumes, you get points to start with in the volleyball game.
That's cool.
So you get an advantage for the better costume, stuff like that. So we didn't win. I was very upset. Said some things that weren't appropriate for a church event. So
what was your costume?
We did Scott's Tots from The Office.
So
we had
great.
one guy dress up like Michael Scott, and
nice.
The rest of us had the blue shirts with the Scott's Tots.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we ended up getting third, so we started with some points.
There you go.
Yeah. Other than that, one of the guys who's been on the podcast, Chris Walden, he's got a house that I helped him do some tongue and groove on under their patio, and they're massive patios, so it's just working on scaffolding, working on ladders and stuff like that. So it was, they had 2 different patios, and they were challenging for 2 different reasons. One was just you're working above your head the entire time, and it's not too bad because you just go up once you get it tacked. But it's the up and down, because you get some stuff done, then you got to go back down, get all this stuff organized, and you just feel like you're losing a lot of time in between the transition. The other patio, we started on the scaffolding, and you have to work on your knees with your hands probably like a foot above your head. My knees were just destroyed afterward. Still working in shorts because it was hot outside. So after the first day of doing that, we switched to ladders.
Yeah.
And we just set up 4 ladders to be able to just go up in the different sections and just move them as we needed to, because we were like, we're not doing that again.
Right.
But it turned out really nice.
That's good.
So it was a lot of fun. And then had a project for some people from my church group. We're redoing their laundry room. And then if I remember, I'll put a picture in about here. And they had a sink area that they wanted to do a butcher block countertop on, which is a wood countertop. They wanted to undermount the sink as well. So usually for doing a butcher block countertop, you set the sink on top so you can
seal it,
cut it out, set it on there, and it's not going to be, you're not going to have as many raw edges to there. So anyways, we got that done, but figuring out the stain correctly, we ran into a whole bunch of issues. We went through at first it was like, oh, we think we like these range of colors, showed them it. No, that's not it. Found a different color, had an issue with that color that was in a water-based. So we're like, let's try an oil-based that we think is the same color. Not the same color, but the oil-based was fantastic.
Yeah.
So last Friday or a week ago or whatever it was, had him over to my house. We had dinner together and we're like, all right, we're going to figure out what exact stain we want. Figured it out, got it done, got it installed, wrapped it all up on Friday of this last week. So it was just it was a runaround. It was hilarious. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, but I don't know. Glad that one's done.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Well, I mean, your shoulder's supposed to be pretty jacked now, or just like hella sore after all the up you were doing.
Yeah, I don't know. Just being on the knees on that scaffold was the worst part.
Yeah.
So, right. But yeah, the shoulders aren't too bad once you get it nailed off.
Yeah.
Because you can tack it and then move down. One of the problems was I always make the joke that people bought wood from the banana tree because everything's so bowed.
Oh, yeah.
And with tongue and groove, you have the U-channel and you've got the piece that goes into it. So some of the boards, they're bent one of two ways. Either it's going to be hanging down and you've got to try and shove it up and then shove it into the groove, or it's bowed to where the two ends fit in snug, but the middle is sticking out.
Yeah, good luck.
And so you're trying to pound it in with a mallet and it's bouncing back on you the entire time. So
that's awful.
We had to get creative with we tack tack an end, and then
slowly go up.
Yep. But what we do is we take a screwdriver, stick it in just beyond there, pound it into the truss that was above, and then crank it, nail it, go to the next truss, and then do that over and over. So
that's some creative problem solving.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It was one of Chris's friends that we saw him doing that and quickly adopted it.
You're like, I want to do that.
Yeah. So
that's great.
And then I love Chris. Chris is a great guy, and I do love his attention to detail, but he is a woodworker. Mm-hmm. So before we had started that, we had done a different project at his house with some framing. Yeah. And he's precise down to like a 32nd of an inch.
Jeez.
And maybe like a 16th. But for some of those things, everything is, you just have to be on your game the entire time for making sure everything is dialed in. And it's his house. So it's not like you can be like, look, you're not going to see it. Move on.
He's like, but I'll know it's there.
Yeah, he's going to see it every time. We made the joke that every time I'd come over, he'd bring me outside and be like, hey, you remember that thing right?
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, but no, it turned out great. So it's going to look really good.
Nice. Heck yeah.
So now I want to buy a house up in the Carefree area, but whatever.
Yeah, how far away was that?
It's like 30 minutes from here.
Okay, that's not too bad.
No.
Yeah, it's really pretty up there, but the houses are also really expensive.
Yeah, they can be.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Just like every neighborhood.
Yeah. Cool. All right. The other thing that we did that we wanted to talk about, and we've got it in our notes, was something we actually worked on for 4 or 5 months.
Yep.
We called it our Cyto dinner. So we got together with some business owners to talk about what they're doing, try and create a space where they can talk together, and then we kind of pulled up our seats at the table at the same time. And we're super happy with how everything turned out. Preparation coming into the last minute was a little stressful, but walking away, we all said that was probably best case scenario for what we could have hoped for. And we had set it in the notes tonight to talk about some of our takeaways from the conversation with them, because we had, at first it started, we talked with them about what they were doing inside their business, and so it was fun to hear how they were approaching things, some of the things that they had learned, even in terms of selling over Zoom, or how they've dealt with adjustments in the business. But then they eventually kind of turned it back on us, which was fun, but also, I don't know how you felt about it. It was stressful being on the hot seat
Yeah.
and feeling like you've got some guys just staring you down and poking holes in things, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I really appreciated it. These were all entrepreneurs who had been doing their thing for more than a few years. Some of them more than decades of experience, and so I feel like there was a lot of wisdom there. And it was really cool to see behind the scenes, talk about the stuff that they're excited about, the things that they're proud about in their company, and just how many similarities there were between a lot of their approaches, especially from faith-based entrepreneurs. I thought that was really intriguing. And I don't know, there was just so many like cool nuggets that you don't normally like. Most guys don't normally get a chance to just kind of have that kind of conversation. And
Yep.
you know, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, but you're not necessarily talking to a lot of entrepreneurs specifically about their business, because these guys were all very humble. No one was bragging about any of their stuff. But they were just so matter of fact about a lot of things. And you know, they ask really good questions. They cut straight to the chase. And so if you're not ready, like there was definitely a couple of questions where I was putting on the back foot. I was like, I haven't even thought about that. Like, I don't even know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But I sure as heck made sure to go look it up after the fact.
Oh, yeah.
But it was fantastic. It was the food was great. The company was awesome. I didn't really have that many expectations going into it. I didn't want to set anything, but I was blown away by the overall experience, and like I want to have another one immediately. It was awesome.
Yeah. So we did want to talk about some of our takeaways, and I think both of ours come specifically from when they kind of flipped it around on us. I've got one from when they were talking, but one of the biggest things when one of the guys, he had previously done a remodel to his house and was mentioning some of the issues and was talking about my communication to customers in terms of budget and schedule. So he was really pushing for making sure that they could see where the customer was at with the budget and where what the schedule looked like for the project. And I was sitting there at first, and I was struggling with the idea of why I don't feel like I need to really open up a budget or talk to any new prospects about missing budget, because once I commit to a price, I commit to a price. But it was the thing that I forgot about is there are other companies that don't do that. So just because I'm doing something as a standard operating procedure with giving someone a schedule for their project or saying, hey, here's the payment schedule, here's exactly what it looks like, here's the landmarks that it follows. And so it's clear cut straight from the jump. And then I even put it in the schedule sometime. This is when we expect to finish it. So this is when this deposit, that's not typical for the entire industry. So it made me kind of like, oh, okay, I need to advertise or at least communicate what I think are some of the standard processes to any prospecting customers that are looking at who we are, trying to get an idea for what we do, because trust is a huge deal. And if we can communicate, hey, we're not even going to deal with we're not going to venture into any of the areas that you have fears, because that's just not a part of what we do. But there's a lot of word salad to say, trying to communicate more of what our standard operating procedures are. And I think we talked about it afterward, that it's like the episode from Mad Men, that when they're talking about cigarettes, that they're baked or whatever it is.
It's toasted.
It's toasted. And everyone toasts it. Or the majority of contractors might have a schedule that they give to their clients, or they might show them, here's the payment schedule, here's where you're at. But the ones that don't, that's where you're going to separate yourself from that pack, first of all, and you eliminate half of the competition that you're going against.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them knew you and your business and your work ethic. And so I think part of why you've had so much success is the people who do know you know that you do good work. And it's just how you handle so many things. But I think also learning there's a skill to learning how to communicate that to people who don't know who you are.
Absolutely.
And figuring out what sets you apart from every other contractor. And that was kind of something that they were talking a lot about, of like, okay, well, but what makes you different? But what makes you, and they kept pushing on that. And I thought that was really good. And
Yep.
like it's something that even, they were asking me that as well. It's like, okay, there's tons of other developers out there. What makes you different? I'm like, good question.
Yep. Yeah. So, very quickly that turned into updating the website. I built out a page for that, and it's kind of more, it's still, I'm going to tweak it a little bit, but for now, try to even just address those things. Put it up there to say, hey, here's what we do. I tried to think of what are the main concerns that people have brought in terms of even during a project, people being in their house if I wasn't there. And so trying to just make sure it's like, hey, we trust all these people, that the payment, here's how payment process works, all that good stuff. So immediately updated it, and then we even added a new page for collecting information from people. If they're on the website and we haven't interacted yet, it's more in-depth way for them to talk about what their project is besides what I had before, which is, what's your email address? What are you trying to do? So yeah. And then before I hand it off to Alex, the last thing was a tip for selling over Zoom. And this one, I think, caught the attention of the table quite a bit because most of the guys there, and I think us included, we like interacting with people in person. We feel like we're great. We're great with that interaction, and that's where we can get the best progress. But with everything changing to Zoom, one of the guys had done a lot of sales, and he had gone through a training for Zoom, and one of the things that they said was, you're trying to get as much information on the people before you're jumping on with them as possible, and you're setting the table for the personal interactions that you can have with them in that moment. And it's opening up the opportunity for asking a question specifically to that person. And the nice part with Zoom or Google Meet or whatever the platform they're using is usually people aren't going to be interrupted as much because it is more of a, I go, I'm going to speak, and then you're going to speak. Because if we start speaking at the same time, the audio is like, it goes nowhere even more than if we're speaking at each other at the same time in person. So he talked about even the way that if you know the next person you're going to be talking to in a sales progression, start asking about if you can try and get personal information about them. So you might be able to draw an introvert out more. You might be able to connect with an extrovert quicker, but you're really trying to build that rapport, and it's hard to do over Zoom. So if you can do it, you've got that foot in the door a lot quicker.
Yeah. But even just hearing about how sales completely changed for that individual in terms of they used to be traveling all the time, they had to go in person for a lot of stuff, and then completely going to Zoom, not only did it allow them to take on more sales or do more sales, but it completely changed their business and their expenses and everything. Like, that was just super interesting to see how much that changed.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. All right, what do you got?
So the big two things that really stuck out to me, the first one is, and you kind of know this, and even if we look at our stats of our road to 100K, entrepreneurship isn't very linear in terms of, and you and I have talked a little bit about like overall momentum, but even with momentum, you can see that there'll be a month where you're doing really, really well, and then there might be a dry spell. Even as someone specifically at the beginning of the year, I was doing pretty good, had some pretty good months, and then like 4 months in a row, just nothing. And then now stuff's starting to come up again. But it's just very interesting hearing from all the entrepreneurs of like, oh yeah, there was a spot where we're doing great now, we're in a healthy place. I've become very cautious because of where I've been, but oh yeah, there was a period where people were like repoing my truck and all this other kind of stuff. So like, it just, there is so much up and down with entrepreneurship as a whole. There is a lot of risk associated with it, but just because you're putting in all the work doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a straight line upward and like, oh, you just magically make more money. It's no, you'll make a lot of money and then you'll run into a new issue. And then until you solve that issue, you plateau or you even go down. And then when you figure it out, you start making more money again. So it's just, it's very hard. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 months, right? Like at 10 months, you'll feel like, oh, I generally get a good sense of what's going on, but like that's not a grand enough scale. Having entrepreneurs who've been doing it for 10 plus years say, yeah, no, it's like there's entire years where stuff isn't going well. And if we hadn't planned that far ahead, we would have been like many of our competitors who just closed up shop because they weren't thinking years, they were thinking months. And so just the amount of, just all of that kind of stuff was just fascinating here. The other thing was, I think one of the guys said this, and it just really stuck out to me. He's like, you can be doing everything right, and you can still fail.
Yep.
And specifically hearing that of like they knew other entrepreneurs around them that were doing everything right. That, you know, by all means, it should have been a successful business, but it still wasn't. And, you know, sometimes we can get, okay, well, what are the things we need to do? And there are a few of us who are doers, and like, if there's an opportunity to go do something, just tell us, we'll do it. But you can do all those things and you can still fail. And so that's something, like, for me personally, I've definitely had to come to terms with, because I'm definitely like, okay, I'll just go do it, whatever I need to go do. And stuff hasn't been working, and that's incredibly frustrating. But then there's stuff where just all of a sudden it just starts working. It's like, oh, okay, I guess this is the path we're going.
Yep.
So I'll talk a little bit later about that later on. That really sparked a lot of ideas for me. But those are the two big takeaways.
Yep. I think that we're very much inputs, outputs type of people.
100%.
And there's a point to that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, there's some of it's out of your control with timing, opportunity, just, and as much as people want to say luck isn't a thing,
it's a big part of it.
luck's a thing. Just in terms of, I've had interactions with people that have turned into something, and it's, if I wasn't at that place at the right time, or I didn't have the conversation with that person a long time ago, or it's like, yeah, you kind of set the table, but in reality, it's, there's something going on.
Well, it's like, I think it's Microsoft that I heard of. Microsoft wouldn't have been a company if one individual's plane wasn't delayed.
Right.
It's just like, even some of the biggest companies today with very talented co-founders or founders, they still couldn't have existed if they didn't have a little bit of luck. Like it's a perfect balance in a lot of those things. And so that's just something to keep in mind. You know, you can do everything right and it still fails.
Yep. Cool. All right. We're going to bring Mason in just a second, but before we do, we have our Shamrock Farms ad read for the evening. And if you're wondering, did we start with the quart, go to the half gallon, and now we're at the gallon? Yes, we did. Why? Because this is called chocoholism. Now, with Thanksgiving right around the corner, nothing brings the family together like good food and drinks. So that's why we recommend Shamrock Farms, particularly with chocolate milk. It's a great way to get a tasty drink that won't end with your uncle getting a DUI on Black Friday. So go to your nearest store, get some Shamrock Farms chocolate milk, and enjoy this Thanksgiving and Christmas together.
What if I'm more of an eggnog person?
Shamrock Farms has eggnog.
They do. They have delicious eggnog.
There we go. So go get that as well. Yeah.
Next episode, I'll bring some eggnog and we can do both.
All right, cool. All right, we're going to put this on pause for a second, and we should have Mason back with us in a moment.
Okay.
All right. Mason has joined us from his sickness den out in Surprise. So,
why are you telling people where I live, dude?
It's a large city.
Address will be in the description below.
All right, Mason. I know that you don't have a ton of time with us, but did you want to talk about any of the stuff you did last month, or you want to just jump into the business stuff?
You tell me. Because I don't know what you guys talked about yet.
We did everything up until the business stuff, but your notes did look
You want me to save it for next week
next month.
or next month? So, well, I guess it's a whole nother month. But yeah, we can talk about it.
Cool. What do you got?
Well, one of the reasons why I was not at the podcast last month is because we had a scheduled work trip in Las Vegas and didn't even think twice about the podcast on Monday night.
What a slacker.
Dude, I was talking to Thaddeus on the phone. Like, I also forgot like 3 other meetings I had that week. So it was a disaster. Yeah. The only positive thing is that last night I did hit a $13,000 jackpot on the slots.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
the scary thing and crazy thing is that I was not intoxicated, but the reason why I preface that is because when I was waiting for the people to come for my winnings, somebody walked by and was like, "Oh, geez, you were betting $28 a spin." I was like, "What was I doing?" So it just, I would have stopped a long time ago if I realized that I had that much money in there. I thought I was betting like $2.80 a spin.
Oh,
Yeah, so I could have messed up big time, but so that worked out in my favor.
nice.
What else? Okay. Oh, the beginning of the month, I now have a double-digit son. He turned 10.
Nice.
There we go.
I have a 10-year-old. Oh, he freaking acts like a teenager sometimes. Okay, hear me. What else? Oh, last week we won our first basketball game right
Nice.
before the playoffs.
Nice.
It's if you've seen our team play, that's a big a big deal. So, but it happened last year too. We won the last game before the playoff started, and then we won the next two games and won it.
Nice.
Keeping my fingers crossed.
There you go.
Yeah, pure coaching, by me.
You see, you're just that good of a coach. GC will have to hire you next.
Why GCU?
I don't know, just local.
It's
team.
local.
Yeah, unless you want to go to ASU.
Or
Yeah.
if you want a closer school, you've got ACU. Or what's the really small school that's out in Surprise?
Oh man.
Isn't that ECU?
No,
What?
there's a small one out there. Does it start with an H?
I don't
See, you could be that coach.
Yeah, I did get asked to interview for a head coaching job at a high school,
Really?
but that's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
A lot of work.
A lot of travel too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, you get a very small stipend for working 6 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but and then also too in the same month we had a sex talk with the 10-year-old.
Nice.
Although it wasn't one-on-one. It was actually CCV they called it a jumpstart program for 4th through 6th graders.
Yeah.
And like we watched like a bunch of different watched videos of them talking about it. And then they went out to like a break, like the girls went in one room, guys went in the other room, and then we reconvened.
Mhm.
But some of the stuff was like towards the end was like things I would have never thought of back in the day.
Yeah.
Like a lot of talk about pornography that was never brought up with me growing up.
Yeah.
Sending pictures and stuff like that. So it was cool. And if you knew my son, he already asked way too many questions about everything. That just opened up a door for a lot of questions.
How long before his brother knows?
Oh yeah, dude, he'll probably know shortly because he'll ask a question and then then his brother will answer it for him. Oh, what did he ask? He asked what something was. Oh, I forget what it was. I remember it was like the day before. I was like, you'll get that answer at this meeting thing, bud. Take care of it. And the thing too, they made a little joke about. So if you don't know yet, babies do not come from storks, and like not even joking. Like there's probably a good like almost half of they were like, oh. Either they were like joking around with them, or like they seriously were like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Well, half of those kids were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, really?" And then the other half were like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that was cool and kind of funny at times. Although my wife was very immature about it.
Really?
Oh yeah, she was texting me. She's like, "I'm holding back so bad right now." She's trying not to laugh. I was like, "Dude, you're immature."
Oh, that's funny.
What else did I put on there? I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we talked about you getting surgery for your knee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I went to the doctor, and then now I have to get knee surgery.
Yeah.
But it would be nice. Hopefully, my knee feels normal.
Yeah.
I've only been doing stuff with this knee for 4 years, so
Yeah.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Do you have any notes for the business side of things?
Well, because I didn't put my stats in the notes or whatever, but this is the first year since 2019. So normally a normal real estate cycle is always around September, October. The number of available homes starts slowly ticking up, and and it obviously didn't happen in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. It slightly did, but this was the first year where it's almost like if you take those 4 years or 3 years out and then slide over 2024, we're back on like a normal real estate market cycle. So, and then you pair that. So, I mean, I think the interest rates are back in the sevens right now, maybe the high sixes. So, you pair that with high inventory, with the election going on. Because people from both sides says if she wins or if he wins, I'm moving to Canada. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So you pair that with the election, buyers are just not doing anything at all. And then high inventory. So like this will probably be, I mean, nothing like 2007 because that was inflated, but this will probably be one of the best time in probably the next 5 to 10 years to buy a home because there's people want to sell their home, so they're slowly dropping it. Also, you're going to be able to get more out of the sellers, and it's almost 2020 inflated the prices, and I feel like we're back to where the new baseline. We're not at the you can buy a house for $200,000 baseline. We're up to like 350. So I think we're at our new baseline, and then so this is you got a bunch of homes to look at. The interest rate, yeah, it sucks, but every single person that I know is talking about as soon as the election's over, no matter who it is, like January, February type, interest rates are going up.
Yeah.
Like even lenders are kind of adjusting their interest rates already. That's why you've seen some of the slight downticks right before, and then usually right before the election, interest rates go up a little bit like they are now. So if you want to sell your house, it'll be a while. But then again, you always have a buyer. They're looking for that perfect home.
Yeah.
So you never know. So the market, I feel like we're back on track to normality, and then we'll see when the interest rates drop if there's like a crazy spike in people buying again.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Nice. Then we spoke earlier. Did you have anything in regards to how, if someone comes to you to say, hey, we are looking to sell our house, if you're going to try and get a rough valuation to them quickly, or we have a client that we're working with right now that they're looking at potentially buying a home. They own their home right now. And as we try and put that calculation together for them, even just shooting from the hip so that we can be generally correct, how do you start putting that together to understand what their home is worth and what we can expect for their budget?
Yeah, well, anytime you get somebody that wants to buy or sell, it's always a good idea, like we're doing, is to they found a house they liked. Like, even though they have to sell in order to buy the home, let's go show them a couple homes. Let's get the juices flowing, get them excited about possibly a new house. And then you kind of anybody can do this. You just take their address, Google it. This is too shaky. There's 4 different webs. You put it in, you get a Zestimate. And then you go on Realtor.com. They've got a little graph that shows you 3 different random evaluations they have. So they have 3. Then Redfin has their own estimate, and they all use different AI. I don't know what their specific. It's very broad. So if you get those numbers, And then also too, our MLS has a RPR feature where it kind of does the same thing just to get an extra number in there. But that'll give you a ballpark. Usually between those numbers, there's going to be about 100. 100 is a little much, but usually about 80 to 40 grand difference in all those prices. So that'll give you a good idea of the possibility of what your home can sell for. So you just take that minus what you owe on it, and then you can kind of get an idea of roughly how much you're going to make on the house when you sell it to help you figure out what kind of house you want to buy.
Cool.
So what you're going for?
Yeah, and then obviously when things start becoming a lot more concrete, that's when we dig in and do the full analysis to say, hey, here's the criteria that we work off of because most about their house, the condition of the inside, things like that. So we can put together a real analysis of it. But like we talked about with this client, we just started talking with them about it. They want to get rolling on some things. So we want to start putting together, we want to be able to bring them information right off the bat. And we're going to try and kill zombies in terms of, well, what do you think we could get out of our house? Well, what do you think we could get out of it? It's if we can just show up with all the information to say, hey, here's the window, here's what we expect, here's the timeline, all those things, and knock it all out. And then if they say, okay, yeah, sounds good, then we just tighten up, like we get into the details of all those numbers, tighten them up, and then we go from there.
Exactly, like a more enhanced comprehension, because what your home, like your appraised value, your home value, and all these websites are totally different than what your market value is. So what are homes selling for right now in the market? And the biggest thing that you need to take a look at is how long are they staying on the market?
Yep.
And then obviously, the plus and minuses of any upgrades that you've made to the property. But yeah, and then maybe by the next month, we can talk about how we got them to buy a home and sold their home. And we can talk about how we did that.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we'll just pretend we never talked about it on this podcast. So, yeah.
Anything else?
Nope. I just make sure you guys.
Actually, we do. We have something else.
Okay.
We didn't hear about your numbers from last month on the road to 100K, so we need a little catch up right now.
Oh yeah, dude. So, October was a big fat 0 because having trouble selling my last listing, but we finally got under contract. It's going to close this month. But September, I think it was like a little over $36,000.
I think it's 34.
34,
Mm-hmm.
34,664, something like that. Yeah, 34,000. So that's always a good month.
Yeah.
The fun one with that is that usually, that's maybe 3 or 4 transactions, but that was just 2 homes.
Jeez.
Yeah, so just bigger priced ones too.
You're welcome.
Yep. Although I did not take Thaddeus' cut out of that number.
No, that's fine.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I figured.
Cool. Which just year to date, that brings you to 83,225 on the road to 100K. So you've got 16,775 that if we could do that by the end of the year, you hit the road to 100K in the year.
Yep. All right. As long as my listing closes and I can get one more in, I think I can get it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So make sure everybody's seated, got their headphones in, because you are about to get your mind blown by Alex.
By me?
Yeah. Pay attention.
All right. Thanks, Mason.
All right, buddy. See you guys. You want me to hang up? Okay.
We thought Mason was hanging around for the rest of our stuff as well. That's why we transitioned before talking about all our stuff. But
Yeah.
he was in for his stuff. And he got out,
He's in and out.
Thanks for stopping by. But we're going to skip some of the material stuff. Most of it, I looked at least at the 2x4s. They're the same, and we're just going to keep rolling. So the numbers from this last month, I honestly thought October was not a great month for the amount of money that I was going to be able to put on the sheet. And then last night, as I was this morning, as I was tallying it all up, it was 20,104.43. So I thought I'd be able to cross the 200 mark by the end of the year. Apparently, we crossed the 200 mark in October. So now I'm trying to think of, I've been trying to figure out, is there a small goal that I can set to try and hit before the end of the year? So
250.
I feel like 250 might be a little out of reach because we're at 207,339 right now.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like 225, 230. So 225 is in my head.
I think you should set 250. That gives you something to push for.
So
Because 207
well,
not bad.
okay, here's the thing right now. I have a bathroom that we're working on right now.
Sure.
Besides that, we don't have any signed contracts for the rest of the year.
Right.
And a lot of that comes down to people don't want you destroying their house at that time. So it's, all right, how much money can we realistically collect in less than 2 months before the end of the year? So if we were to say 18,000 across 2 months, or if we just, we could say 230. We could just try and make it 230. So there's something I am working on, but it wouldn't get me all the way there. So we'll have to figure it out. Anyways, action steps from last month. I called the 50 realtors that were on my list, had some people that sent the email over to. I did reformat how I was kind of scripting my phone call. So trying to make it very much like, hey, here's who we are, here's what we do up front, and the referral is the thing kind of more cherry on top. Whereas before I was trying to get I'm a general contractor, we have a referral, and like not emphasizing what we do. So I felt like that went a lot better, a lot smoother on that aspect. So, and then for this next month, it's going to be build a list and call 50 realtors. So, and I think some people might be thinking, well, if you don't have a ton of projects lined up, why not call a bunch more people? There is something that I'm working on kind of separately that's taking up a little bit of time that I'm not going to get into right now. But so we're going to build a list, call 50 more, and that'll be the action steps for November.
Gotcha.
Last thing real quick was, this is something that people in the construction industry might know and have known for a lot longer than I have, but this is something I've been learning about, so just wanted to share it. And that's going to be cost plus versus fixed cost on projects. And these are the two biggest ways that people are billing as general contractors, particularly for their projects. So fixed cost is the easiest to understand. It's we have a project, we're going to collect all the bids from our subcontractors. We'll have a markup on top of that. We factor in how much time we're going to be doing, and then present it to the customer. And it's just, here's a number. That's it. So we sign a contract saying, I'm going to do X work for X amount of dollars. And that's what I've been doing for the most part. That's the what I've had previously for the people that I've worked for. Whereas cost plus is the part or the type of billing that I've been learning about recently. And that has more to do with two specific line items that make it different. And the process is going to sound very similar because we're going to get all our bids from the subcontractors. There's going to be a markup on it, and then you send that to the customer. The difference is on, let's see, I'm trying to figure out how transparent I want to be on this. No one listens to this, so okay. For fixed cost right now, markup wise, I take all the line items that I would have on a contract, I mark them up 35%. That's the cost to the customer. In cost plus, usually you take all of them, and it's going to be 15 to 25% is where most people play. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, why would you even do cost plus? Because it sounds like you can make more money on the fixed cost side. There are two line items that I don't put in a fixed cost bid or an estimate that do show up in a cost plus estimate. Those are going to be called general conditions and then project management. So my project management fee and my general conditions are coming out of that 35%. And right now, I ran the numbers for where mine's at, for where my estimating's at. If I were to do cost plus and try and get 20% out of it, I essentially land at where my fixed cost is. So if you are listening to this, you are a customer, I'm not taking advantage of anyone with the way that I'm doing it right now. It is what it is. The reason why this is important to me and is something I'm trying to learn more about is because as the projects get larger, once you start crossing a couple $100,000 and we're making selections, and we might even be starting a project where some of the selections are going to be changing down the line, or if we're creating change orders, it creates a lot of transparency. Because if we want to upgrade flooring, it's not that, hey, I've got to go run to a calculator, figure out my fixed costs, and go from there. Or they see a flooring, oh, I really like this. Can you let me know if we can afford this based on the budget? It's a lot easier for me to talk to, if it's the supplier or trade partner, hey, how much is this going to be? If it's going to be $10,000 more with a 20% markup on there, the customer knows it's $12,000. I don't have to try and play the game of, do I want to tell them my markup? Do I not want to tell them my markup? Because that can get weird. So there's a lot more transparency. It makes it easier on that side. It's nice as well because typically it's going to be, hey, really, whatever the project comes in at, I'm shooting to get as close to that 20% as possible. If we're not hitting that 20%, that means there were issues, and our job is really to mitigate that. And the thing I skipped over, general conditions and project management. Project management is easy. It's to have the guy on the site managing the project. It's going to be paying for the interaction between the architect, paying for the management in between the contractor and the designer, making sure that the customer's requests and all of those communication is executed in the construction of the project. So that on the very large builds can start on the very early stages when you're just dealing with an architect, creating those drawings, same thing with the designer, and we haven't even started the build, but we have to front load all of that beforehand because it's who are the contractors that I'm going to be bringing in based on the design, this structure, all those things. The general conditions, this is going to be a line item based on if we're doing floor protection after the flooring goes in because we still have trades that are going in there. We don't want to damage or get any debris on the new floor that discolors it, any of that stuff. If we're protecting cabinets, if we have any adjustments we need to make, paying for cleaning supplies, essentially it's consumables that we're going to have in the project that's going to get eaten up. So those two numbers get put into all of our line items, then we add 20% on top of it. The fixed cost, we don't have those two line items, we have the higher markup on it, and out of that higher markup, we're taking care of those two items right there. So that's just something I'd been learning about, just wanted to share about it because I've had a couple conversations in the last couple months about that, trying to understand it. I'm thinking about switching over to a cost plus or trying to understand when it would be more appropriate based on project size. For a bathroom, for a kitchen that is smaller, it makes the most sense to me right now to be doing fixed cost because it's pretty simple as far as we selected the tile, we selected the grout, everything is contained. Whereas once you start getting to a lot of those larger projects and you're making a lot more decisions, that's where it's easier just to be like, let's not even get into all that. Let's just make it as clear, easy as possible. And it's, hey, how much would it be to do this? How much would it be to change it? And that's that.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool.
Sweet. All right. So for my recap, I made a whole $200, which is more than I've made in the last few months. So honestly, while it wasn't a ton, it was refreshing to have some kind of work come through. We had the conference, which was very, very educational. I applied to become an MRI partner, which if you're an MRI partner, they recommend you to other clients for certain jobs.
Real quick, did we talk about MRI on the podcast before?
Yeah, just in case we haven't, I'm not sure if we have, but MRI software is a commercial real estate software that the company I work at uses. It's used for property management, accounting, tenant relations, database, just all that stuff. It's very wide encompassing. They have all these kind of modules and stuff. Their main competitor is a company called Yardi. Those are the two big in the industry, and they together they own about 85-90% of the market for software real estate or real estate software. So it was super interesting getting to talk to a lot of the partners there. I got to talk to a consultant who's been in the industry for like 20 years. She gave me some great feedback. I was asking questions like, oh, how do you get started? All that kind of stuff. And she said, I'm honestly a horrible person to talk to about that because she's like, I worked at MRI, then I quit, and then people followed me. And She doesn't pay any marketing costs whatsoever. She's like, the only marketing cost I pay is to show up to this event. And then everyone chats with me and I have enough business for the year, which I'm like, wow, that must be nice.
It's the same story I've heard from so many contractors too.
Exactly.
Which, as young guys trying to come up,
It's so frustrating.
it's so annoying.
Yeah. But it was really interesting. A big thing I learned after talking to a lot of people at the conference is a lot of the MRI employees had been there for a long time. They usually remained in the industry. They either came from another company that was a client and then went to work for MRI, or employees from MRI would quit and then start their own consultancies or other software companies that would end up partnering with MRI. So it is a pretty closed ecosystem, and a lot of people, the barrier to entry is really high. A lot of people know everyone really well. Everyone hangs out. There were big parties and stuff, and everyone was very, very comfy in front of each other. Like they were dancing, all that kind of stuff. So it was super interesting learning all about that. The biggest thing that I think has been beneficial for me was actually getting a list of all the attendees, because the hardest thing for cold outreach has been trying to find people who use MRI. It's really hard to identify that kind of stuff just randomly online. And I had a few techniques for doing that, but nothing's better than saying, hey, here's a list of people who actually use MRI because they sent their employees to an MRI conference. So I had a buddy of mine help me scrape the list, and of all the attendees, I ended up getting about 200-ish people on Sales Navigator that I could actually find, and about 56 unique companies, many of which I had no idea. I tried searching on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I would have never found these companies. So that alone was incredibly useful. So a lot of my action steps going forward are going to be doing everything I can to contact those people. So I've already started on the LinkedIn outreach. I'm doing 50 a day, so it's not going to take that long to reach out to all of them. And then I'm doing cold calling and emailing for that list of people, being hyper targeted on all of them. I talked to someone who does recruiting for accounting and finance people, and he kind of walked me through developing my own cold call script, which was so different than all the other outreach that I've spoken. People generally try, and me personally, I try to be very polite, but something he kind of put into perspective was, for a lot of VPs, a lot of CFOs, that kind of stuff, they don't care. They're like, why the hell are you calling me? All that kind of stuff. So he kind of showed me his script. He's like, as a recruiter, he basically calls, he says, hey, I'm from this recruiting company. I have a candidate. Here's all their qualifications. Without saying, hi, how are you doing? Like, he gets straight to it. He's like, this is what works, because they don't want you to waste their time. That you give them. And then he put a lot of things about, okay, you're not asking for a yes or no. It's like, get them to start talking about themselves after that.
Yep.
But you let them make the decision from the beginning. So that was super interesting. I'm meeting again with him later on this week, and we're going to be revising my script now that I have a few pointers. So that was
Real quick, that makes a lot of sense too, in terms of, you have someone pick up the phone, and there's a lot of people. The second I figure out you're not someone in my network that I need to talk to, click.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it's literally just, hey, information,
Yeah.
and then it's, you can process, do I want it, do I not want it?
Yeah.
And if it's hyper targeted for your industry, you might get that extra second with them, and so you're going fishing.
And so I actually, from that conversation I had to him, I tweaked some of my LinkedIn messaging today, and I was talking to you about this earlier. But I switched to, I have a 3-message process. It's an opener or an initial connection request, an opener message, and then I give it about a week, and then I do a follow-up. So I had a list of follow-ups that had been building since I've been attending all these conferences and all this other stuff. So I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to switch up the messaging just a little bit of just like, hey, I know you're busy. Don't waste your time. I want to show you these 2 reports, and like 2 very specific things. I'm saying, one that saved people time, another one that they had never had before. So those are the 2 reports I'd love to show you. I have some time on Wednesday. And just super direct. And I sent all those messages out this morning. I showed Thaddeus. A guy responded, which normally I don't get any follow-ups. People don't really respond to any of my messages. So for me, that was a small win too. Even just today, that was really cool. So overall, I feel like we talk a lot about momentum. I've been putting in a lot of effort. Felt like it wasn't really going anywhere. I was just kind of slipping on ice. And just even today, right before the podcast, had a couple opportunities just kind of click into place. So feeling hopeful for the future stuff. But it's going to kind of piggyback off of the next kind of stuff I wanted to talk about for our business talk.
Cool. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Cool. Let's do it. We've got our company thought section, and Alex is taking it for this evening. So
Sweet.
we moving to the whiteboard?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Cut again. We'll have 4 segments
I'm
in
sorry.
this whole thing.
I'm making it so painful for you. Where's your markers?
It's over there.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to talk about failure because I think out of everyone, I have probably the most experience. Well, I don't know if I have the most experience, but I have a lot of experience with failure, specifically with entrepreneurship. So as I've been reflecting on this last year, I've been doing this for now 10 months. Thanks to the wee little $200 that I made this month, it's now put me over. I've made officially 10K. It's not quite 100K, but we'll take it. Honestly, being able to do that in the first year, I'm satisfied with, even though I wanted definitely more out of it. But as I've been reflecting on that, I was thinking about just, how entrepreneurs deal with failure, what that really means, and, what to keep doing about it. So the 3 things that any entrepreneur or just anyone can do in general when you deal with failure, you got 3 options. You can give up, very optimistic. You can pivot, or you can keep going. Now, that might sound really stupid in terms of, okay, yeah, that's pretty obvious. And I've found that I've had to do a number of pivoting and keep going over and over again, because it's really hard in entrepreneurship to know if it's something that I need to just keep doing it and keep failing, and then it's going to get traction, or I need to pivot to something that's going to make more sense. And I've had to do that so many times with so many different aspects of my business that I just didn't know. And dealing with all of this is already daunting when you're doing it by yourself. You're doing all of this from scratch. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what works. And so the way to mitigate a lot of failure that I see, and that's worked a lot for me, has been mentorship. So getting a good mentor. And I see that there's like 3 different types of mentors that you can have. You can have a 3rd degree mentor in terms of degrees of experience. So for me, I would say a 3rd degree mentor is someone who is in a different industry that you are, has worked with different outcomes. So they don't necessarily have anything related to you or helpful for anything, specific that you're looking for, but they'll have like general tips. So a 3rd degree mentor. It can be kind of helpful, but when you ask for specific issues, they might not be the best person. Secondly is a 2nd degree mentor. Those are people who are kind of useful in terms of they might be in a similar industry, and so they might have some takeaways, or they've handled a specific problem that you are currently dealing with. So that can be super helpful. But by far is a 1st degree mentor, someone who's in your industry and has been there and done that for all the things that you want to get to. Those people are incredibly hard to find, but those are the most valuable people to look to and talk to. If you can get their ear and they want to give you their time, that is incredibly valuable. Overall, I've been thinking about a mixture of failure. Okay, well, what actually gets success out of that? And I know Thaddeus likes his formulas, so I came up with a formula to help it stick in my mind. And that is success is equal to the effort you put in, sorry for the chicken scratch, times the number of failures you have, plus your mentorship, I'll just say mentors here, plus luck, we talked about luck earlier, divided by time. So the reason why I say this is because effort, obviously you have to put in the effort yourself. But the more you fail, the more mentors you have, and the more luck you have, over time, that eventually leads to success at some time. So I see a lot of people who maybe they have a few failures, maybe they have 1 or 2 good mentors, but they're lucky as hell. Yeah, okay, that's great. But how often can you keep replicating success? The more failures you have as a whole, because luck, I feel like, changes. Luck can be very timing dependent. Are you the guy who bought Bitcoin right at the beginning? Are you the guy who is day trading and you're lucky one day, you're horribly unlucky the next? So overall, like failures and mentors are by far, and effort are all the things that you can effort and failures particularly are the ones you can control the most. But if you have good mentors, you have a little bit of luck, and you keep failing, odds are you're learning a lot of different ways to not do it. Kind of like they talk about what Edison did 1,000 different ways of doing the light bulb. And so I think this all comes together for me, especially with the Cider dinner that we had, in terms of saying, like, you can do things right a lot, and you can still fail. But you don't learn from just having success, because you don't know what necessarily worked. When you fail over and over and over again, you're learning, you're building up the dictionary of Alex, the dictionary of Thaddeus, in terms of, okay, I can't price things this way because it makes things confusing for people, or I can't advertise this way because it's way too generic. And so overall, as frustrating as these last 10 months have been for me, I've learned more about myself, about my business, and about my industry than I have at any other period of my life. And I've been working in professional services in my career for over 8 years. So the fact that these last 10 months have been so crammed full of information, I feel like that outdoes any school. So here's a few things that I've learned about, and I'm not going to go into like the actual lessons, but just like different parts of my business that I've learned a ton about, and I'm still learning about just in those last 10 months. I've learned about partnerships, marketing, sales, cold outreach, mentorships, pricing, project management, development, networking, investing, risk taking. Overall, the failures have taught me more and more than any of these successes. So what do you think?
I think the one thing on the failures is there's two types of failure, and there's the catastrophic failure and there's the survivable failure.
Sure.
And I think obviously you're putting in the survivable failure into there. And I forget if we spoke about this before, but I've started to notice that I think my biggest leaps and bounds have been inside of the survivable failures.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that distinction for people or if it's people or if it's an employee for us or whatever, that the times where things go horribly sideways, it's not necessarily a great consolation, but that's the point of the most learning. And if we were to say learning from the non-catastrophic failures is what leads to the success, because at the end of the day, we can have, and especially we've got them in the construction industry, we've got some guys who are very thick-skulled that if you can't survive something and learn from it, then you won't have that success because you're going to run into that same problem over and over. But it's those times where you are pushed to your limits, because when everything, for me, like if everything goes smoothly on a project, I'm not going to be stretched in the same way because everything's been put into place. It's when we've got a new process that the scale is bigger and I missed something and now it's reacting, or if I agreed to do something and not understanding the scope of what I was agreeing to and then digging into it, that can be a survivable failure. But that's the hope that we have for the success going forward.
Well, and I think the thing specifically about entrepreneurs is it's a lot of work. There's a lot of risk that you're taking on. There's a lot of late nights. There's a lot of wrestling with what the hell do I do next? How do I get the answer? But at the same time, through all of that, through all the stress, even though things aren't peachy keen right now, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not thriving. I'm not able to do this full time right now. As frustrating as all of that is, I know if I didn't, I would regret it. And as much work and hours and effort and energy I've put into this in these last 10 months, I would be kicking myself if I hadn't given it my all. And I'm still like, giving up just isn't an option for me. And it's like, I'm still doing the pivoting and keep going until this works one way or another. And I think for me, I have to do all of that, because if I don't go all the way to the end of the story, I'm going to wake up at 60 and be like, oh man, like what if I just gave it like 2 more months? What if I just tried this one more thing? So I don't know. I feel like you got to be a little bit broken as an entrepreneur to want to keep pushing through when all this stuff doesn't make sense. But I'm hoping that this stuff is going to compound over time to eventually get to the success that I'm trying to go for.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's it. Thanks for letting me do it.
Yeah. All right. Are you just walking out of camera frame?
I am walking out of camera
Rude.
room. Well, I figured we were going to go back here.
No, we're
Okay.
not.
All right. I'll stay back here. Are you going to walk into camera? Are you in camera?
Yeah.
Okay.
I checked earlier. Where can people find you?
People can find me on LinkedIn
And
and my website, control-analytics.com.
Mason's on Instagram. Just search his name, Mason Oxendale. It'll pop up. Cyto @Cyto_building for Instagram, and then Cyto-building for our website. Like we mentioned in the podcast, we've built out some other things in there. Feel free to check it out. Shoot me a message, your thoughts on the website, what we added, anything that you think you would love to see if you're remodeling a house, anything like that. We're working on getting the Cyto building, not Cyto-building domain. We have it. It's just in a 60 or 120 day holding period, so hopefully that'll be soon. But until next time, hope your hammer stays accurate, your Wi-Fi fast, and you work blessed. See everybody.